Okay, so getting back to this, I'll share my screen real quick. So I sent out those files earlier today. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. I know it's different than what the textbook shows. It's similar concepts. The only thing that's really different is this one, because that's a much better way to do that. We are very restricted with that simple thing. Only a left click on buttons with some methods. We can't even call all the methods we know how to write. So I wanted to make sure and show that. And on your homework, I would really like to see that. Please include at least one like key press. So do like Control A or something. And if you want a lowercase letter, just put a lowercase letter, and then you won't need the Shift key. But if you want to include the Shift key, you can put an uppercase letter. And yeah, maybe just try a key press, and in the buttons, it'd be better for them to do it this way. So with those files I sent out today, it's just to kind of express a point. I'm not exactly happy with the way the textbook presents graphical user interfaces. If y'all couldn't tell, I was trying not to get too far away from what the textbook did, because that's our main reference for the class. It's not just this textbook. I have never found a textbook I'm happy with the way they present GUIs. Because this, not really much of an interface, right? If we just look at idle here, there's kind of a standard thing we expect with our interfaces to have. You know, even if you've never seen idle before and not sure what to do with it, you probably know that if you come to File and hit New, that's how you start a new piece of software, right? That's pretty much text editors, Word documents. But there's this standard layout here. We have a menu up at the top, a main menu up at the top, and I have to make this smaller. Then, well, that didn't make it smaller. Raise that up a little. Then down at the bottom, we have some sort of status going on. And idle here is just a few simple text editor functions. And then down at the bottom, the status just tells us what line and column number we're on. Which I guess it's kind of the only way to look for line numbers in Python. If it says, you know, there's an error on line 19, we kind of have to click around and look down there at the status to see what that is. But sort of a standard appearance, right? Open Notepad++. This kind of follows that same appearance. We have that main menu up top, this large area with our main content, and then there's some status stuff down at the bottom, the status of what's going on. This one also has a toolbar, but the same basic concept. What else do I have here on my computer? Just pointed a couple of these. I think y'all kind of see where this is going quickly, right? Nope, not that button. I don't actually have Word, so I don't know if I can start it. Word has a slightly different version, because on Notepad we have that main menu and then the toolbar, and that was very common for a while. And then we kind of got to a slightly modified version of that, where the main menu and toolbar were combined into one thing called a ribbon. But it's still the same basic idea, right? We have our main menu, well, a ribbon up at the top, which is the combination of main menu and toolbar combined in one, all our main content area, and then a status bar down at the bottom. Sort of a standard way that interfaces should look like. And this little one here is not even close to that standard. There's newer updated look. So that was the first major update. Then another major update came at some point afterwards. I know Google stuff follows it. So if I go to the Google apps, well, pictures are in my way. If I move the pictures and go to the Google apps, I don't know why I just moved the pictures there. Those still in the way. What's one that would have it? Jamboard will. There was another major update to how sort of a standard. Right? We have the little hamburger button, and behind that we put our main menu down the left side. And then the main content kind of fills up everything. But just some standard appearances to how things look. We know where stuff is, right? There's another instructor here at Ivy Tech. I'm not going to say his, I don't want to say his name because I'm going to post these videos up here, but he tells the story of being in Asia, China, or somewhere on a business trip. And he got back to his hotel room after the conference that day and had to do some work. So he opened up the computer to try to do some stuff, and everything was in Chinese. He had no idea he had no idea what it was saying on that screen. But he did know, I'll open Notepad++ because it'll have the button I'm referring to here. He did know on the software where he was using where he needed to go in order to change the language that the software uses. And well, I guess this one only has the one language here. Everything was in Chinese, and he couldn't read any of it, but he knew where that button should be. And when he went to that button, he saw an American flag and was able to get his work done because of that standardization, the way things look. And that's what those files I sent out earlier today are. I have a copy over here. Just standard appearance. That's even what I called the thing. So one of them is done with modules, and one of them is done with the class notation. They do the exact same thing. So if I run it, it's just an example you all can look at to see what it takes to put a file menu in there with a button that'll run something. And this one has a text input box, so I can type some words in there, type in my name, and not just the file, I guess a toolbar. There's only one button in the toolbar, but still a tool there that we can click on and get a message to pop up. I need something else to hit the other button. Human, because it's just saying hello. So, and then down in the main content, we see the status bar just updating, say the software is saying hi. There's a button here to do that. Or I'll change this again, put in person. Oh, I didn't click it to the enter key. I should have put the enter key on there too. That'd have been a good key binding. There's also a right click, and then a little context menu pops up that says say hi. All that stuff's the standard, right? Y'all seen that in a few places?
Yeah.
Yeah, better places than this, but that's the thing that I'm never happy with in textbooks. Is like that's what a graphical user interface should look like at the minimum. And if you can do this, then it's just layout options to turn, instead of putting the menu across the top, to put the menu down the side and stick it under a button. Or if you can put the toolbar in there, you just add some tabs to the toolbar to get a tool ribbon. So if you can do one, it's just, the other ones are just different ways to position the buttons. They're not brought in a different way. They just look different. But these files just have that standard. And one of them is done with the class notation. And one of them, I'll click on it. It does both of them do the exact same thing. So you can click the button and get a little message popped up, message there, the right click. just one of them's done with objects and one of them's done with modules. So I just put that together for, I guess, straight up like a copy example. Comments in both of them explaining what's going on at each point. So this one obviously has the class notation. So we need the self everywhere. And then we just created a root element called TK. Did all this stuff. So like main menu, that's a little bit different. But down here we have a frame for the toolbar. Put a picture on a button like we saw, and then put that button in the toolbar. Have a frame for the main content. Put a label and a text box. We call them entry, which makes sense because a place to input text. Put that in our main content. And you see that same notation we just saw. It's just more cases of it. We saw all the stuff to do with TK, just very simplified examples, but kind of like when we looked at it, if-else structures, right? We looked at one simple example to see the syntax, and then we can just keep building that, building it, and using the if-else and ands and ors in more and more complex situations. But it only takes a couple minutes to see the syntax for what an if-else structure. But these are some examples you can just straight copy from. So we pack this, then packs in that stuff, calls the dot pack to fill things up in the X and Y direction. Put the status bar down at the bottom, and then inside of each one's the grid. And there's probably some key bindings here somewhere. I scrolled right past them, I guess. And this is the exact same thing, just without the class and the self and all that stuff. What we've been typing the whole semester. That's why I wanted to give you both, because we already have 5 weeks of practice at this method now. So it's we're a little more practiced with typing functions and putting our code together this way than what we are with the object notation. And for anything we're doing this semester, it's not going to get to a level where one method provides significant advantages over the other. We just want to get started in the concepts and make sure we understand the concepts. That's why I was thinking this one might be a little easier to follow. And this is kind of what we just did. We create that TK object as just a variable out there, the leftmost, no indenting, so that we can access it from anywhere in the code. And yeah, the stuff that we've seen over and over and over again, and some descriptions. And that is just some examples for you all to have. Copy and paste stuff. So like the line to put the file, the couple lines to put that file menu up at the top on this thing. Yeah, the couple of lines to put that file menu in there would be exactly this, just copy that and paste it and change file to edit, and then add some stuff to an edit menu. Copy and paste it, change file to view, and add some stuff for a view one. So everything else would be copy and paste from that example. So I thought I would just go ahead and include that. That way y'all can put somewhat nice looking interfaces together. Have either one of you all had the SDEV 153 class?
No. Mm-hmm. What is that one?
That's website development.
Is it HTML?
HTML and CSS. In particular, I was going to mention the CSS. So there is also a TTK. We have tkinter, and then we also have import TTK, which after about 20 years, and usually we do both of them, because after TK interface had been around for about 20 years or something, well, as you all notice, that looks kind of old, right? It looks like it's been around for a while. So they added in the TTK package, which is updates on a lot of our widgets, the labels, the buttons, the binding. If I just switch to the default ones, actually, let me take this back to the default. So there's some text there, just a binding. I guess that blue is the only thing that's not default right now. So I could leave it in there. BG equals blue. And the button and label are pretty much the default. So if we look at this, what is the name of it? I may have to look back up how to import that. Okay, there we go. So we have these really old looking buttons, right? Look like something from the mid 90s. Same thing, nothing really fancy on our label. But if we use for things that are going to show a lot like that, as TTK, if we add that second T in there, we get kind of an updated button. Looks a little bit better. There are some subtle differences in the labels. That's kind of hard to see, but the button you can really see it's more of an updated style. And the TTK stuff, where was it? Yeah. The TTK stuff will take in CSS, cascading style sheets to design, to put a style on it. So that's a little bit better. You can make that look a whole lot better, which has become the standard. So most any interface package that you work with these days, cascading style sheets has become the standard for how things appear. So that's why so many people have to take the SDEV 153 class. It's not for the HTML, it's for the CSS, because that's the one that shows up across the board in our languages. It's only the official standard in HTML 5.0 and above, but it's used everywhere. That's what graphic artists learn. So, and there's an art, on a big programming team, there's going to be an art department. So those graphic artists know how to, the ones who make actually adjusting the appearance, know how to use CSS. So all of our interface packages, because obviously this is not the only way to create an interface, but they're all the same. It's all created in a package, so we import that package, and then we have all the buttons and labels and text boxes and all that stuff ready to work with. And pretty much all of them take cascading style sheets for design. So we can make it look a lot better if we use the TTK stuff. Make it look a lot more modern, which is the other thing I sent out, this reference material. So there were scattered bits and pieces around of reference material. And I think there's a date on here, but at some point this guy had this New Mexico Tech. Yeah. Oh yeah, there is a date. So in 2013, he was going to teach a class on Python and go over this and just put together the reference material himself. And this quickly became the standard. So he broke away from some of the common notations a little at first, from the way computer instructions would normally be done. And I guess this is the way he does it when he gets, this is just his own way of doing it. So the first couple things you look at might seem a little odd, but you do get used to his notation really, really quick. And this is 168 pages. This is a very thorough description of it. So like the grid here, we saw the grid method. So we need some widget dot grid, and that's where we put it, then option, some sort of option equals a value, and then dot, dot, dot just means we can keep passing options in. And then right down here are all our options. We can pass it with if we want to grid stuff, we can use a column, span across multiple columns, span across multiple rows, add some X and Y padding outside our object. So this is what we used on that quick example a few minutes ago to get between the edge of our window and our button to move that over. But we also have inside padding to just before any labels or anything would show up. Make sure we have padding, inside and outside padding to get a little bit of space. And sticky, if we, this one he kind of spells out exactly. If we use the word sticky there, then we have these compass things. So we have northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest, north, south, east, and west, obviously. So we use compass directions to just, and we have those eight positions, 8 corners of a square, I guess. So kind of like a compass with the north, south, east, and west, but then we also have our corners for the northeast, southwest, and then vice versa. So that helps with positioning things. And he did all of it in tables like this with bulleted lists under them. So it's kind of takes a moment to get used to than some of the methods that are built in there. Then more stuff about grids. Is this one of the PDFs that has links up here? Yes, so somewhere here is our basic widgets. So, or like a button. We saw buttons, canvas widget. Canvas is for drawing if you actually want to draw. Check button. We've seen check boxes before, right? We either click them or we don't. So when you look through here, you'll see it's we're gonna tk.check button, then parent, where are we putting it? So we have to create some parent. Like earlier, first we put everything right in the window, made that the parent of everything. And then we added a frame in and put that inside the frame. Or we can put widgets into other widgets and just keep creating layers of them until we get it to look like we want to. And then here's all the options: active background. We can say BG or spell out background. Some sort of to put an image on the button, a checkbox button, so we can check by images. And then these are all the attributes that you would pass in, all the arguments. They look like arguments here. All of the arguments you would pass in when you create that. Technically, we would call them attributes if the thing we're passing them into is a constructor. But yeah, all of the things we can adjust about it are in that table. Which you can see there's quite a lot that can be adjusted about a checkbox. Here's probably the big one we want. Eventually we want to get, we want to be able to get the value from there. And there's somewhere down here is the stuff to select it, invoke it, and toggle it on and off when it's clicked on, and different things we can do. Entry widget is the one to put stuff in. So some of the ones that are in the examples I sent you, look at how they're put together there, but also make sure you check it against this reference material, because this is the thorough reference material. This has everything the TK package can do. So it has the whole instructions for the whole thing in that. but it is a little awkward to read at first. So if you look at that example I sent out or the examples in the book, and see how to do that, go ahead and look it up here so you can see how, kind of get a sense of how this notation's put together. I'm going to go back to the top. And then the TTK stuff is on here somewhere. Yeah, so you can see there's a lot of different ones we have, like notebooks, paned windows, so we can organize different panels, and that's the ones where we can grab the panels and resize them in our window. Those are really useful. Tree views, yeah, kind of like we're used to this sort of view. We can set up all the stuff. We kind of have to connect it to the operating system outside. So that might be a little bit beyond the one lecture on the TK package, but it might not, because you have all the instructions right here. And well, obviously you can always Google these things too. Right. So how to create a tree view in Python. Oh, I'm going to say tkinter. So I pointed out the TK interface package is available in pretty much every programming languages. Sometimes we still have to type in TCL. TCL, that's the language the TK interface package was written in. We might have to type in that some, but we have access to it. It's just one of the original ones. And then, yeah, kind of look for a tutorial. These guys usually have good tutorials, good explanations on what's going on, and brief explanations. The Geeks for Geeks. You can just check things like this. So they put something together, a little window, and then all the stuff on how they do that. I was expecting to see a result from that, but you all know how that goes, right? You're able to check, you can find reference material online to look at. And when you do, make sure you come back and check this. This has kind of become the official TK interface reference material. So a lot of times, whenever you search for something about the package, this document I sent out will be the top result. And I was expecting to see something about TTK on here. Maybe I scroll past it on the list. Text widgets kind of useful. Something that I find is to be the best practice. Something I do to learn a new language or learn interfaces in a new language is kind of like what's going on here, only in the main content, I'll make a text editor. Just put together a text editor with the basic file, save, and open. Because in Python, we know how to read and write a text file, right? So you can just read and write a text file on some buttons, have a little text area where you type into, and then either send that to a file or retrieve it. And that can be really, really good practice. Oh, there we go. And then down here, they have the TTK set stuff, which is like updated versions, but they follow that same pattern. We parent it to some object, and then we start passing in attributes or arguments, which look very similar, but the list is different. Yeah, so they go ahead and spell that out, the things that are different between them. And they took a whole lot of this stuff out because the TTK stuff will accept cascading style sheets to style it. But I sent that list out, so you'll want to use that. But there's lots of reference material around, and it's definitely something, you see, you just want to get some practice with it. Sit down and make some simple ones. These that I sent out might be a little complicated. I really just wanted to make the point about that standard appearance. Make sure y'all are aware of that, and part of that is giving users what they expect, right? Whenever we see new pieces of software, we might not know what to do, but we know if we go to the file menu and the very top and hit the very top option, that's going to create a new thing of whatever that software does. And you want to fit those standards. That way people kind of know how your software runs as soon as they see it. You don't have to sit down and give them explanations. They know what the standards are in software. So that's why I sent that out, but it is a little complicated. And y'all can use it as a copy and paste example to put stuff together. So I think that was everything I had on my list of wanting to go over. Button 1 is the left click button. Might as well mention this. Button 2, if I run this one now, button 2 is like the middle click, which I can't do on the mouse pad, can I? Well, there's a way to, but if you can simultaneously tap with 2 fingers, but I can almost never do that. Alt click works sometimes, but it doesn't in this case. We try button, and then button 3. So that's clicking the middle wheel. Oops. Run. Oh, right click. Yeah. So now I have to right click on the button to do that. I know y'all can't see what I was doing there, which one I was clicking. The F5. So 1 is left click and 3 is right click. So if I come in here and left click on the button now, it doesn't do anything. So I'm over on this side of the mouse pad, but if I move my finger over here to the right click, it switched to button 3. So that might be important to remember. And then on your bindings, if you type in an uppercase letter, you have to hit the shift key. And if you type in a lowercase letter, you don't need, it's just that key by itself. Any questions about that?
Oops. No.
Okay, so hopefully that's kind of making sense. And then there's reference material out there. Everything's going to follow this format. So the object we want, and then where are we going to parent it to? And if we want to, we can pass in the other stuff. Then the other stuff we want to do. The key bindings all look like this. And the one that is very different from what the book said, even if you use that command method, if you want to choose to use that method, like the book said, where command equals something, it is still a good idea to use lambda, because you can't pass in arguments unless you tell the computer to wait. Otherwise, it'll run that method too early. So that's the big one the textbook left off that you might need, depending on what you're doing. Which for the homework example is to convert a temperature, which means your method is going to need a temperature passed into it, right? Kind of hard to convert a temperature without passing write a method that will convert a temperature without passing the temperature in. There's ways, but it kind of takes a couple long workarounds that involve extra thought. It's much easier just to set up the method to accept a parameter, throw in the word lambda so that it doesn't run immediately, and then pass in the temperature you want whenever you click the button. But there's some options. I would really like to see at least one binding. So after you get your function working, just add like at least a key press binding. Otherwise, it is definitely something that falls under the category of programming as an active subject. We learn best by doing it. So what time is it? 8:15. So as normal, I'm going to keep my computer here and the lights on and everything. So we'll call the rest of this evening lab time. So there's plenty of time to work on that and kind of get a feel for the putting an interface together with code. And then the last 2 weeks of the class, we'll be putting interfaces together with the drag and drop, some software that we drag our mouse around and it writes the code in the background, which has advantages and disadvantages. If we type our code, we have full control over it. That's the biggest advantage of typing our code, is we have absolute control over what's going on. The disadvantages are obvious, right? If the ones where we drag our mouse around and the computer writes the code, the computer doesn't make typos like we do. Little things like that. So it's probably best to know both ways. That's why we looked at the TK package here, and then we'll look at Visual Studio the last 2 weeks of the class. Then Wednesday night, we're going to look at some other languages very quickly. I haven't decided for sure which languages to look at. Y'all that are here, do you have any requests for a language you would like to look at Wednesday evening? I mean, we're not going to do much. We're going to, do simple, probably not even go all the way through it, just kind of take a brief look at some of the syntax on them.
Either JavaScript or Java. Would that be doable?
Yeah, that'll work. Java is one of my favorite languages. Java is probably my favorite language to work in. So yeah, we'll look at some Java and at least the basic syntax and talk about it and see how the logic we've studied still applies. I'll get something ready and I'll probably use that online IDE I like that knows lots and lots of languages. And we will also look at GitHub. Actually, we can look at Java and JavaScript. They're not actually the same thing. JavaScript just created that name because Java was very popular. So they just thought that if they named their stuff after Java, it would increase their popularity much quicker because people would think they were connected. And it did work. So that definitely paid off for them. But so we'll take a look at some other languages and then how a repository where programmers share code, and a lot of the open source stuff you can find on the one we're going to look at, which is kind of nice. I'll open this up real quick before so I have this software. It's some 2D graphic software. It's not the best one. I have some better ones that I often use. But what I really like about this one, once it opens up, there it is. What I really like about this one isn't necessarily these features, because there's nothing really too special here. We have our normal shapes. There's one shape I like in here on their list of shapes. They have this freehand thing, which is a polygon that runs on a timer. So I just drag my mouse around, kind of like finger painting, and it fills it in. But that's better done in SVG software. So nothing too special about this. Am I sharing my screen? I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry. Let me share my screen and do that. So just, some basic software where we can put shapes in. This thing connected to a polygon's connected to timers, so just drag it around, or a lot of triangles and our regular paintbrushes. Nothing too fancy. What I like about this is it's open source stuff. I was able to go to GitHub and download the code for it, and then play around with it. And it's software that people open source, so they shared it with the public, which means we can go grab the code for it and then start messing around with it. Like that one was graphic software. Learned to make graphic software by looking at that graphic software code. It's a good place to get examples for stuff like that too. Or just, if you have an idea, you don't need to start from scratch. go find one that does 90% of what you want and then add in that other button that you think would be a good idea there. So we'll take a look at that on Wednesday. But otherwise, kind of lab time for the rest of this evening, and I will be right by my computer. So if you have any questions, just let me know. And otherwise, I'll see you all on Wednesday.
Okie dokie. I'll see you on Wednesday.
Have a good one.
You too.
Yeah, try to stay warm.
We'll do. It's
starting
snowing
to
pretty
snow in
bad.
Clarksville.
Yeah.
What's that?
It's snowing pretty bad out here. So yeah.
Yeah, I see it on the metal things like cars and stuff. They probably would have canceled schools. That might be one good thing about the virtual stuff. Is
You miss school. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not going to just shut down because they're worried about it getting cold. But I'll see you on Wednesday. Have a good one.
You too.